Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we're going to discuss ranking up in Season 11. Now obviously LFG is a tool nobody has had access to before this point, so we're going to try and determine whether your best bet is to just solo queue like previous seasons or embrace the new group finder and the different brand of Overwatch it brings with it. Before we get to that though, Jeff Kaplan posted to the forums a few days ago some stats about user engagement with LFG. In the first week, the amount of full 6-man groups has doubled, with the result being queue times have got significantly shorter. Perhaps as an extra bonus, this hasn't negatively affected the queue times of other smaller group sizes either, so it appears to be at least a win-win for everyone. There are some issues depending on what rank you are though. LFG groups are much easier to find for the lower levels up to and including Diamond. There's simply not as many players at Master and beyond, so finding a group can be much harder. Not impossible, but it does take a bit longer to fill the groups out, so bear that in mind. You will also likely have slightly longer queue times the higher up you go as a result. Let's deal with solo queue first, as that's the environment everyone is most familiar with. The challenges to ranking up are still largely the same as previous seasons. It can essentially be a lottery, and it's about taking advantage of more mistakes than your opponents do. Both teams in this environment can be disorganized to a certain extent, so the pressure to get individual value becomes paramount. This is why hero specializing is still so common. Players practice and get good at one thing, knowing that if they can get value out of their preferred hero, they stand a good chance of doing just enough to win a match. That is definitely still a viable strat in Season 11, especially if the hero you choose is one of the most powerful and core heroes in the current meta. Hanzo, Mercy, Zen, Doomfist, Zarya, Rein, these are all good options. Outlaws Mendo had a very interesting tweet about this dynamic actually. He said that playing flex and filling, at least for him on his main account, has been nowhere near as productive as just insta-locking the hero he wants to play on his ult and not communicating at all. I'm sure that's a common thread for most of you guys too. But one example doesn't make an absolute rule, and there definitely is a real skill to adapting to what your random teammates are doing, or most crucially, want to do. One of the most common scenarios is that people just fill to what the rest of the team wants to run, and the key part of this is not trying to fight your team or impose structure that they either don't want to do or can't. This is how Rein Zarya comps come to be played everywhere, because it's relatively simple, there isn't much thought involved, and especially with Hanzo being so strong, there's inbuilt synergy that you don't really have to work at. This approach requires you to enable what your teammates want rather than wasting time trying to teach them the game while playing it, as that can often be a thankless task. I know it sounds bad, but trying to play too much proper Overwatch can really get you in trouble. Sometimes, even if people seem open to it, trying proper team play can lose out to distinctly solo queue tactics. We've said it before, but this is why multi-DPS greedy comps can utterly destroy a team who's trying to play quote-unquote properly. You might not have people on roles they're particularly comfortable with, whereas the other team just has loads of DPS hero specialists that can secure that sought after individual value. Doomfist is a great character to exploit that kind of situation, and that's why you see so many Doom players in solo queue. He doesn't have any easy answers really, even in organized play. None of the tanks shut him down like Winston can do to Genji, D.Va can chase him, and Roadhog can crowd control him, but if played right, he can be nearly impossible to kill. It's that kind of value we're talking about. Causing massive problems like that will win you games. So if you're not comfortable on a hero that your team wants to run a certain strat, your challenge is to figure out how to make your best hero work with it. Don't obsess about what's right or wrong, worry about what's effective. You do need to recognize, however, if you're doing nothing on your pick, then it is time to change it up. I play Zen 99% of the time, but if I'm getting a bit farmed, usually by a good Doom, I swap to something I can at least stay alive on, like maybe a Brigitte or a Moira. Your team can deal with having less healing on another pick if they were getting effectively 0 because you were dead all the time. Manage the chaos as well as you can and internalize the fact that Overwatch is a boom and bust game. You can be getting rolled 1 minute and then after a change you can be rolling them. Now let's assess the LFG and grouping option. We've noticed on our social media interactions and comments on the channel that there does appear to be two very distinct player experiences as far as grouping goes. You're either finding people to play with, building better comps, playing more actual Overwatch and winning, or you're not quite finding the right balance, perhaps too many bad solo queue habits are creeping in, infighting breaks out, and before you know it, you're on a loss streak. Well, that can happen for a number of reasons. The first is, LFG's best function is not as a role queue for pickup teams. It can certainly do that, and if you're desperate to get out of solos, it can definitely help with that, but teams hastily thrown together in LFG can have all the same problems that solo queue has. Poor hero pools, bad interpersonal chemistry, different people with different ideas on how to play, etc. But there's also the addition additional factor of, you won't just be playing against another badly organized unit like you would be in solos. You'll be playing against another group, and they could have their team built in a much more constructive way. What LFG is really good at is helping players find others that they like to play with through trial and error. If you don't have many friends to play with, LFG is the answer. You can start building these networks for the future. This was a fairly common occurrence in other games before Overwatch, by the way. So you find a good Mercy player, keep them. Find a good main tank, add them too, and before you know it, you can have a wide variety of good teammates to call upon to go and play a much more serious version of Overwatch with. Ideally, you want to get a good base and then just add people in for the roles you need going forwards. The more developed synergy in your group, the better. And you'll need those reliable teammates because make no mistake, more real Overwatch is going to be played, and that asks something different of a player than solo queue does. Group play will severely punish a team that tilts easily, and if players have bad habits from years of solo queue, it can be difficult to adjust. If you have someone on your team who's counter-calling strats and blames everybody else, I hate to say this, but that person is not in the right mental space to play against a well-disciplined group at most ranks. Overwatch is very boom and bust, like I said earlier. The challenge of a team environment and being a team player is staying calm and trusting each other to adapt to what might be beating you. You can't do that with bickering and people talking about the last team fight well into the next one. If you're going to rank up as a group, then there are a few tips you can take advantage of. Make sure before you queue that everyone can play the heroes that you need and that they're willing to communicate. Not using a mic is understandable in solos, but it's not really okay in teams, especially if it's on a role like main tank. As for heroes, you will need to have people in your group comfortable on the most powerful meta examples, so currently a Hanzo player and a Mercy are almost required. That's not to say those players can't play anything else when the situation demands it, but people are going to be tryharding against you every match. That is not the time to say, I can't play this absolutely essential hero. Also, try and have a primary shot caller agreed upon before you play. It will help tremendously. I secondary call sometimes as the Zen player because Discord focus is such a strong tool, but I never counter call an overall strat in a fight. Counter calls can be so destructive and can lead to everyone being not sure about what they're doing, so they end up just doing nothing. If someone or multiple people are doing that and you're losing, it might be much better to address it in between games and get that dynamic sorted. Games will not always be straightforward. In fact, they very rarely are. I'm way up on my placement SR from playing in a group, and I can't tell you the amount of games we've won in the very last team fight. When one team wins out like that, it's because as a team, they dealt with the pressure and the mental game better than their opponents. There will be times when you're getting beaten and beaten convincingly. In solo queue, 2 badly lost fights can mean a tilt apocalypse. In team play, the game has only just begun at that point, whichever end of the beating you find yourself on. Teams will adapt to you, and you must adapt to them, and to handle that, I believe you've got to want to be playing that version of the game. People who succeed in group play do so because they actively want to be playing actual Overwatch and improving over time. That's how you use LFG to rank up. It would be much easier if groups played solos of similar ranks for some free wins, but that doesn't happen, as we all know. One of the only downsides is, if you're the kind of player that wants to play this version of Overwatch, but you're too high a rank to begin with, that can be a bit of a problem. As I said at the beginning, there's just less players towards the top end of the SR system, so even finding groups can be a bit tiresome. Above GM and into top 500, everyone just plays solos, as the quality of the matches was always better there, as everyone is so good. But in all likelihood, if you're top 500 and wanting to play organised Overwatch, you're probably already in an actual team anyway. So in conclusion, the best ways to rank up in Season 11 really depend on what kind of player you are and how you want to play the game. Ranking up is viable in both. The techniques for solos is largely unchanged, but groups require extra footwork to find the right teammates and possibly some mental adjustment. I'm loving LFG. I haven't played the game so much or been ranked higher in a very, very long time. Your experience might be the total opposite. Whichever the case may be, there are some things that you can do to maximize your climb. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. If you never want to miss another video of ours again, please click the bell icon next to the subscribe button on our channel to join the notification squad. You'll be in great company. And finally, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter, where you can find updates about new videos and other cool stuff. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time.